I was lying in my nightie when my father-in-law was in the room. My nightie was barely there. I felt embarrassed to see my father-in-law because my brown nipples were clearly visible. I started to get up. Then my father-in-law held me by the arm and made me sit down and started rubbing his hand on my chest. I was starting to get wet from below. Then my father-in-law told me to spread my legs on the bed. I was already hot. I didn't want to do it. I put on my whole nightie. Today I started sleeping early. I had to wake up early in the morning and send the children to school. My mother-in-law was not at home, so the responsibility of the entire house was on me. I had to send my brother-in-law to the office in the morning, along with Naveed, and then send my children to school during the day. I also had to take care of my younger sister-in-law Faika, who was still going to college, and then I wanted to take good care of all the household chores, but I didn't know where my small mistakes would take me in life and how much punishment I would have to face. The days were passing by and not only did I have to take Baba with me, but I also had to take care of the house even though I didn't want to. But my father, Saman, my father-in-law, always kept his hand on my head and encouraged me that it was a girl. It was okay, mistakes are only human, everything will be fine. I had to bring the children home from school and I don't know how I forgot because that day Baba's sugar was running really high and no one was at home at that time. I wanted to take Baba to the hospital, but no car was at home at that time. Then Baba said, "Daughter, you do it, call the doctor here. I don't have the courage to reach the hospital. In case something happens to me on the way." I immediately said, "God forbid, Baba, don't say such things. Nothing will happen to you. Inshallah, everything will be fine. Nothing will happen to you. I'm just calling the doctor here." I quickly called Baba's family doctor and he gave me some medicines and an injection, which made Baba sleep for a while and now he seemed to be feeling a little better. Then my heart felt a little relieved. So I breathed a sigh of relief, but when I looked at the clock, it was 3 in the afternoon. I was startled and immediately ran towards the door. Oh my God! How could I forget? It's been 3 hours since the children were waiting at school. Their leave must have been at 12 o'clock. I had just reached the door when I saw the 2 children in the car with Naveed. I breathed a sigh of relief again. But when Naveed and the children came into the house, my heart sank. The children looked very scared and shocked and started crying. I made them quiet. In such a short time, Naveed had again lashed out at me angrily and said, "Noreen, don't even bother. How could you forget to bring the children? If it hadn't been for Madam's call from the school, I wouldn't have known that no one came to pick the children up at school." That's it, Naveed. Actually, that's what Baba said. Stop it, my friend. Noreen. How long will you continue to cover up your mistakes by taking the help of Baba? These children are not mine alone, they are yours too. And then you are aware of today's environment. The children sat alone in the school for 3 whole hours and kept waiting for their mother. But you just stay here. Then you started getting angry at your daughter-in-law. You know she can never be so careless and then before getting angry with her, listen to her story. Why didn't she come to pick up the children? Baba. Naveed was scolding me again. I ran quickly. Baba. Hey. Why did you come here? Your health is not good anyway. Naveed, after hearing me, immediately started holding Baba and said, "Baba, what's up? Are you okay? What happened to you?" Baba said, "My health had suddenly started deteriorating and then there was no car or anyone at home. At the right time, The doctor called the house and I got the medicine on time, and that's why my daughter-in-law didn't remember. She had been taking care of me since morning. That's why permission was delayed for a while. Naveed replied, if it was like that, Baba, she would have just called me and I would have gone and brought the children, but it's been a while. I can see that her heart and mind have been so weak for a few days. Today, Baba had saved me from Naveed's anger. No, today I was not well at all because in the matter of the children, Naveed is very sensitive, he never tolerates any other meanness with children. I was just waiting for my mother-in-law to return home because I was not being taken care of by myself. At night, Naveed was sleeping. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, my eyes were opened by the ringing of the phone. My phone was ringing continuously. I don't know who was calling me from a new number. At that time, it was appropriate to pick up the phone or not. I didn't know who it was. Whose phone it was. Why aren't you picking up the phone? Naveed was sleeping and humming to me. Yes, I see. I turned it off and went to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I quickly started doing all the housework and was getting the children ready for school. Suddenly, Naveed saw that my phone was off and said, "4 wars, then why is this phone off?" And yes, the phone was ringing repeatedly in the middle of the night. Who was Noreen? Whose phone was it? And please, get the children ready quickly. I am also staying late for the office. That Naveed phone was my mother's. My uncle's condition is very bad. That's why I was saying that if you take the time to tell Naveed to go to your uncle's, then man, I don't have time right now, I will try. At that time, I had engaged Naveed in conversation and the matter had been ignored, but as usual, calls from new numbers would come to my phone every day and I would hang up the phone out of fear. Now, for the past few days, I had started receiving nonsense messages from the same number. I used to block the number out of fear of Naveed, and then the calls and messages would come from the new number. I couldn't even tell anyone about this matter because whether anyone believed me or not, I thought, why not talk to my brother-in-law Faizan about it? In the evening, I went to Faizan and told him that I need to talk to you. He said, yes, brother-in-law. And you seem worried like this. What's up? Are you okay? I told him about this number and the call message and gave him my phone and said, just remember, don't worry about this, Naveed. He said, don't worry, brother-in-law. I see that on one hand I was worried about this reason. On the other hand, for the past few days, my sister Faika was returning home from college every evening and leaving in the morning saying, today is an extra class, brother, I will be late. I don't know what new trouble this was going to put me in. Now I was starting to worry a lot about Faika because if anything went wrong, Naveed would kill me alive, saying that his sister was also my responsibility. But there were days when whenever I would ask Faika about this, she would lash out at me and say, you doubt me, my sister-in-law is also making false accusations. I will tell my brother and complain about you. I would get scared and keep quiet. But I couldn't understand what was happening to me because as much as I wanted to take care of everything, all the household matters were getting out of my hands. One day, exhausted, I called my mother and asked her about my uncle's well-being and about his return. She became depressed and said, daughter-in-law, I don't know anything about his return yet, but my brother's health is completely bad and at this time I can't leave my brother and sister-in-law alone. It will take a few more days. I was surprised at how long I would be able to handle everything. In spite of everything, I was trying to see everything clearly, but some new trouble kept coming to me. One day, I was sitting alone in my room and was thinking about everything. At that moment, my father knocked on the door and said, "Daughter-in-law, come in." "Come on." I quickly put a scarf on my head and said, "Yes, Baba. Of course, why are you standing there? If there was any work, you would have called me." Baba started smiling and sat next to me and kept explaining to me. They talked for hours and said, "Don't worry, if you give up, nothing will happen. And as long as you are afraid of Naveed, raise your voice for your rights. I am with you. There is no need to be afraid of Naveed today. I have permission from you. If he does wrong to you, you can stand up against him. If he is my son, then you are also my daughter." I was feeling calm after listening to Baba's words. After so long, I could hear Faika and Naveed arguing. I quickly ran and went to see. Naveed was raising his hand on Faika. I pulled Faika towards me. "What is Naveed doing? What is this big deal about you raising your hand on your sister?" Naveed, on the contrary, had already started talking to me. "She comes late from college every day. And you never dared to ask her, and instead you are trying to save her. Ask her why she is flirting with a stranger from morning to evening on the pretext of college." Baba's health started deteriorating as soon as we heard this. We all immediately ran to Baba and got him some medicine. His blood pressure started to rise due to tension. When Baba fell asleep and Faika went to her room crying, Naveed started throwing all the blame at me and started blaming me, saying that it was your fault that Faika did this wrong thing. "If you had told us earlier, all this would not have happened and Baba's health would not have deteriorated." On the other hand, Faizan had returned the phone to me and said that there will be no more calls now. "Brother, don't worry at all." But after a few days, the number started calling again and I was afraid because I had already caused a lot of trouble at home. If Naveed had come to know about this, he would have suspected me. One night, Naveed kept calling me and my sleep was getting worse due to the sound of the phone. In the meantime, I picked up the phone in anger and left the room. When I picked up the call and started talking to her, I was stunned. The way she started talking to me, she knew everything about me and my house. I was shocked when she said that she wanted to marry me and would accept my children too, if only I could run away from this house and marry her. Then I told her a lot of things, but I almost lost my life when Naveed called from behind. He was standing at the door of the room behind me. "Noreen. Noreen." I hung up the call nervously and looked back and said that it was my mother's call. I was talking to her. Naveed asked in surprise. At that time of night, yes, my mother was calling during the day, so I couldn't talk to her. The children were asleep, so I thought I would talk to my mother comfortably. I made an excuse to talk to Naveed again, but I didn't know whose number it was and who was bothering me by sending me messages and calling me. I couldn't understand. I was outside and I was trembling after hearing his nonsense, but how long would I hide all this from Naveed? I thought, why don't I talk to my head about this matter? The next day, I told my father-in-law everything about it. He also started getting worried and said, "Even your daughter-in-law, don't mention this to Naveed at all because you know he won't tolerate his anger and will start suspecting you." Baba was absolutely right. I kept quiet thinking this and I had changed my SIM number, but somehow he had also lost that number. Whenever I talked to him, I felt as if he knew about my every move. Then one day something happened. I was stunned. The ground had given way under my feet. When I got in the car to pick up the children and went to school, On the way, I got a call from him and he started threatening to meet me. He was saying that he knew that his children were in school at that time and that he would kidnap them from there if I told him. If I hadn't gone to a hotel at that time to meet her, I was trembling with fear. When I arrived, my face had completely lost its color. There were no children in the school. The school authorities said that someone had already taken the children away by showing their school cards. I sat there with my head down. Whom did I ask for help? When I called Faizan, his number was switched off. At that time, I couldn't tell Naveed anything because Naveed and I had not been on good terms for the past few months. I was taking each step slowly because Naveed had already looked at me with suspicion many times because of this number. He couldn't bear it at all that I would tell him all this and he would believe me that I was not to blame for all this. On the one hand, my words had now come to the lives of the children. He was threatening me with the lives of the children. And in the matter of the girls, Naveed was already making a fuss. I couldn't make any decision then. I called Baba with great courage and when I told him everything in a way that he wouldn't be tense, he said, I will take care of everything. Here you go immediately and the children are with him. Talk to him and quickly bring the children back home before any news reaches Naveed. Don't worry, I am with you, I am with you. I started to feel comforted by the words of my daughter-in-law and my courage started to grow a little. I quickly reached the address of the hotel where this man had called me and when I reached there and entered the room I stepped in fear and trembling and when I saw the 4 others there was no one there. My heart was trembling inside. I was worried about my children. Where would they be? How would they be if something happened to them? So what face would I show to Naveed? In such a long time he had come from the front and with him were my 2 children. He had a veil on his face. I couldn't recognize him properly but he immediately started talking to me in such a way as if I don't know how long he must have known. And the children had a lot of chocolates and balloons in their hands and he was talking to the children very frankly and said, children, don't bother your mother, we will meet again and at the same time, you people should do as I have explained to you. I was very stressed at that time. I didn't understand anything why he called me and what he intended to do to the children like this. I quickly took the children home and I was sweating profusely. The whole house was gathered there. Baba, Ami, Naveed and Faizan Fanka were all present and everyone's eyes were fixed on me. It felt like I had returned after committing some sin, but when I looked at Baba, he started looking down as if he didn't expect me to commit this sin either. I had ruined all the hopes of the family and trampled the respect of the family under my feet and left. But what was my fault? Thousands of questions started coming to my mind and I was in such a dilemma. But when Naveed slapped me on the face in anger and showed me those pictures, my soul trembled.